Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. A couple of administrative items. First of all, I want to thank all of our sponsors. We all know that they play a vital role in our chapter's success, so thank you to all of you. We have a few upcoming events. February the 15th, we have our restructuring case studies, Tales from the Front Line. April 7th to the 9th, there's the TMA Mid-America Regional Conference in Grand Rapids. That's at the JD Marriott. I think everyone that can make it will, everybody seems to enjoy that conference. In May, we're working on our annual Detroit TMA Award celebration. And then it's a little difficult to think about it now, but in June, we've got our golf outing. So other than that, you can always check up our website as we're adding events here in the first and the second quarter. So thanks for that. Okay, fine, cool. So yeah, I'm Mike Boudreau. I'm with Morris Anderson. I'll be the moderator today. The subject is plant floor turnarounds, how to boost throughput and cash flow in 90 days. I'd like to introduce you to Kobus Van Der Zel. Kobus leads our Operational Performance Improvement Group at Morris Anderson. He's an avid speaker and author. His book, The Forces of Progress. You can find that on Amazon. By background, Kobus is a mechanical engineer, an MBA in CTP, as well as a Master Black Belt in Continuous Improvement. Kobus is a respected member of TOCICO, TOCICO, which is an international continuous improvement group, and he received the TMA Midwest Large Transaction of the Year. Some industries where he's practiced his craft: heavy equipment, plastic injection molding, manufacturing as a general comment, machining, building products, construction, and others. So in today's webinar, we're going to address numerous things, but in particular, how to identify cash flow leverage points for machines, inventories, and people. How to calculate the 90-day cash flow potential in 48 hours. And what are the main elements of the plan to retrieve hidden cash flow in the business. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kobus.
Thank you very much, Michael. Very honored to be here with you. You have a long history in auto and food and various industries as well. So really good to be here and to be talking to the Detroit and Michigan and the Midwest people where we've done significant interventions in the past. This is one of our past events where I was the instructor for this advanced 13-week cash flow workshop during COVID. That was exciting. Some of these ideas comes from that workshop as well. And it's a reminder that today we're going to do things that may surprise you. And that's the point. I think what the point we want to make today is that there are more results and bigger results that can be achieved than what people in the TMA environment are likely to believe sometimes. As bankers or as attorneys or as professionals, often we have the tendency to say, you cannot get strong results in 90 days. And we're trying to show what can be done by some of these past cases that we will show you, and also the why some of these fast cash generation strategies can be achieved. So all the time when I look at a new plant, this can be your client that you're working with at the moment, or it can be a past client, or it can be your company. I always look at flow. There's a series of operations and there's a certain flow. And many of you may have read this book that I have on the side here. Let me just put my pointer on. This book by Dr. Eli Goldratt, that was written in the early 80s, a long time ago, but it sold millions and millions of copies. Jeff Bezos put it on his recommended list for his management. Many people around the world did that. And I'm part of this community, as Mike mentioned. Every year there's an international conference, sometimes in Germany, sometimes in Brazil, sometimes in the US. And then the different companies share their their achievements. And a lot of this results-based projects are based on this knowledge. So as we look for flow, the first optimization of a company is optimizing the flow. The second one is how much inventory do you tie up in doing that? And that is the secondary measurement as Goldratt puts it. And then there's always a bottleneck. This red one here, we say, this is just an example. There's always, you have to look for where's your bottleneck. One of the resources is constraining your ability to generate more cash. And the key is to find it and to basically allow it to do more. This is thanks to my friends in Paris, Philip Maris at Maris Consulting. They have this water image where some people picture it best if they see water flowing through different containers like this. But it's the same basic principle. Look for flow. And you can look at an environment like this. This is an environment of a Michigan company that we worked with last year. And they had a big complex sales funnel where they were bidding on different automotive projects. Then those bids became projects. They had to sequence the projects through a lot of people that worked on them. And then the accepted projects went through certain injection molding machines. And then they also had parts orders. So this is a very complex environment, but every plant, every company that you are working with can be summarized like this in terms of flow. Once you understand the flow like this, it's easy to identify your bottlenecks and then to optimize it. So I always do that. And just to give you an idea, Michael, this may sound incredible, but if you can increase operation 5 that we looked at, that red one, if we improve that by 20%, people often think, okay, I can probably gain 20% at most. And because you are leveraging the entire company's flow by opening the bottleneck capacity, you get more than 20%. So to illustrate it here we have a simple 13-week cash flow where the company gets $100 per week in shipments where they ship to customers, and they collect that. We will just say they collected 30 days is accounts receivable and 30 days accounts payable. So they collect that 30 days or 5 weeks later, and they gain $20 on the $100. But on the receipts, we will show you in a few slides' time that the receipts can be reduced. What they receive from vendors can be reduced in the techniques we're going to show you, which drops your payables. And together, that gives you an incredible 95% increase in cash flow in 5 weeks. And I've done this many times. And some of you CTPs and turnaround professionals have done this too. Often when a company is in trouble, you just stop paying the suppliers. But that is what I call funerals. When you just come into a situation and you stop everyone, often that results in a liquidation. And we are trying to create something sustainable. So what I'm showing you here is a sustainable way to maximize cash flow, not just a quick optimization, which will result in a liquidation.
Hey, Kobus, if I could real quick. By the way, I wanted to mention to everybody, I am going to monitor the chat on here. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in there. But aside from that, so I think in this simple example, what you're saying is you reduce the bottleneck by 20%, improved the OEE by the same. So revenue went up by the same, collections went up 20%, cash receipts, I mean. Your inventory incoming is reduced, so that there's an improvement in this example. 90% the cash flow, and then of course the cash would be used in the next step to pay down the line of credit and increase availability. So I think that's we're summarizing here. But aside from the spreadsheet, could you maybe give an example of one or two real life situations where you did something like that?
Oh yes, I will. When we get to the slide, I will. Talk more about it, but in this one company, the company that we won the large transaction of the year award, their Chicago plant, we reduced their inventory um, by such a lot that the plant operations, the manufacturing, almost had to stop for 3 to 4 weeks. There was very little manufacturing because we were allowing the inventory just to drain down. And that is part of what you see here in the receipts and payables that reduce, is because you are doing some of these techniques I'm going to go to in the next few slides, you can really impact the operations in a big way to the point where you create an idleness in the capacity because you are allowing the excesses of the past to go from push to pull, basically. So yeah, we've done it in a few cases.
And one thing, Kobus, so somebody asked, why did the receipts decrease? And there might be just a little bit of confusion. The receipts in this case are not AR receipts. They're receipts of new product that hits the hits the back door. So because you're more efficient, you're ordering less, and then the receipt of product is less.
Yeah,
we will get to
this in about 3 slides, and then it will be much easier to explain how that drop is, where that comes from.
Okay.
So that's a good question. Just hold on to that, please. So what I talk in my book about, Michael, I was never going to write a book, but I started to see the similar things as I come into companies. And I also read a book by Carlos Castaneda called The Teachings of Don Juan. And that book basically says that to become a man or a person of knowledge, you have to overcome 4 natural enemies. And fear is the first natural enemies. And to become a man of knowledge is really a process of learning. And that is what we are stuck with. If you have a company that is in bankruptcy or in violation of their covenants, there can be many things that cause that. But it's always, the reason for that is they are not using the resources they have enough to generate enough cash. And that needs to be fixed. And that means a new level of knowledge needs to be attained. There's something that they are not doing enough of that can be improved. So when we look at how do you overcome fear, a lot of people say, we are late to our customers. We have overdue orders. We have to get more inventory because what we have is not enough. And then you start acting on your fear, and you are not going in the correct direction because you are consuming more and more cash. The counterintuitive metrics that Dr. Eli Goldratt and practitioners like Taiichi Ono taught us was that in order to become lean, you have to be counterintuitive. You have to choke the release to the shop floor and choke the release to your entire US supply chain sometimes in order to be more on time, to have the right things in the right place at the right time. I will just explain that a little bit. We had this tool importer. One of the biggest ABL lenders in the US was busy in the liquidating with a turnaround team, liquidating the company. And the owner got networked to me, and I met with him, and I asked him for 2 things. I said, can you send me all of the inventory you have on hand? And can you send me the market demand for each item? How many the demand per week for each item? And he sent that to me that same day. And the next morning I showed him, I can release 6 million of cash for you within 90 days. And it can be as quick as that, where you can see, knowing how the push to pull should be working, how quickly that can be turned into cash. So I will explain a little bit with an example. This is an example of an inventory simulation that we do. Now, I'm not trying to explain every number on this sheet. There's a lot of numbers, but it's a pretty simple sheet. And it basically takes your items on the left-hand side, and it creates this column here is your demand per week, which I asked for, and your on-hand quantity. And you will see for this item, there's 12 weeks. The demand is, they are using 12 per week, and they have 1,100 on hand. So there's quite a few weeks on hand for this item. So what you then do is you look at not for every item, but for a few items to get an idea. You look at the past historical usage of an item. The blue here is how this company replenished the item in the past. Here they were using it, they were shipping it to customers, they replenished, they were shipping, and they were replenishing. But you will notice they're replenishing at a very high level at around 4 weeks. So they have an unused area of 4 weeks that they never use. So then we will say we can take that down to a week or two, and we can oscillate the company on a min-max at a much better level. Depending on the formula that you use to come up with a buffer in the supply chain or in the internal plant is basically your replenishment time. How much is your replenishment time and what is your demand within that replenishment time? So it's only those two factors that you need to set up a very simple buffer, and that is basically then your pulling force for getting the inventory to get drained. And that answers the question. If you look at it, Michael, on an overall basis, this is what the simulation will show by week for most companies. This is an example from a past client, and it goes from 13 million to less than 5 million in a year. But you'll see the most reduction is in the first 3 months. 33% got released into cash in 13 weeks or in 90 days. So that is a lot of, for a company that's in trouble with the bank to do this. And we've done it many times where there's a liquidation on the go. I come in, I look at this, I do a quick inventory simulation, and we start acting on it. And while the lawyers fight, we are creating room in the borrowing base, and then the lawyers just back off because the situation is diffused. And then we continue to improve the company after that. Very powerful tool, and certainly it should be something that many people on this call can use straight away.
Hey, Kobus, how does the conversation go typically, have you found, when you're talking to either the head of production or whomever it is that you're talking to? It could be the business owner, depending on the size of the company. We say, look, we're going to take you down from, you got 5.5 weeks inventory. We're going to take you down to 2. These are all the benefits. And, I think the natural reaction, the business owner or the production manager says, hey, we've never gone that tight before. That's too risky. Yes. You're going to put us at risk of stocking out. I mean, walk us through that conversation a bit.
That is a very important question, because that's why I related to the force of fear. People do that out of a position of fear, and that is why they end up with what they have. In order to diffuse that takes courage. So we bring that topic on the table and we say, this was fear-based, but there are videos that we use to really explain to them the behavior and why people have accumulated that. You have seen some of the videos in our internal training, Michael, and these are videos that we use with our clients as well. And that then, once we show a video, then we apply it to the company. They then understand. I now understand that we had this fear, but these buffer mechanisms are based in true science, and let's give this a chance. And we could go to one level of buffer with certain safety stock. And then once we show that that safety stock is not used, in the second quarter, we can go even to the next step. But you still get quite a reduction in quarter one.
Yeah. How do you suppose it's a consumer products company? This is part of a question that's being asked. Suppose it's I'm kind of adding to it. Suppose it's a consumer products company and you're sitting on inventory. Now let's go the other way, where there really isn't much demand. So now you've got that inventory sitting on your books. Are you looking to liquidators, or can you talk to that just a bit?
Well, maybe we address that when we get to market demands later in the session, because there's a few good examples, and I can then relate it to some of the market tactics that I describe at that point. But that's a good question. Yes, the initial reaction is yes, do a liquidation, get the auctioneer to come in, but there are much better ways to do that through.
Okay, thanks.
So that is the first force. Fear. So fear, the way to defeat fear is you have to walk through it, but not only walk through it with blind ignorance, walk through it with a new toolbox of these buffers that that can be set on scientific methods, and then allowing that to drain your inventory across the whole supply chain scientifically to the world-class level. The second force, once you defeat the enemy of fear, you will start getting a clarity. You will start saying to yourself, I'm starting to understand. I get this now. And you're going to get very excited. And you're going to tell everyone how it should be done. And at that point, Carlos Castaneda says, you have met your second enemy, which is clarity of mind. Clarity of mind is an enemy. It's not our friend. And the way to overcome that is the same. You have to push it away. You have to say, this clarity of mind is my enemy. I'm not going to give into it. I'm going to continue asking questions, and I'm going to continue trying to learn from others. And the way to do that is to say, what are the real metrics that will show us if we are now at world class, or if we are now only on 25% of the improvement potential of our company? So the throughput, inventory, and operating expense are the measurements. Throughput is flow. So first of all, get the maximum flow through your facility. If you have a backlog, get the backlog to zero. Then once you have your flow optimized, do it at the lowest level of inventory, getting your inventory turns optimized. That releases a lot of cash. And only then do you start tinkering on your main operating expenses. Doing it in that order is clever. But at the same time, we must understand the clarity of mind of, we've got a group of people, and they are the best people in the Midwest. Come and challenge us. You won't find a better team. We hear that all the time. But despite our love for our people, some of them are a better fit for their job than others. So you have to look at something like this type of disk profile that we use. These are just examples, but we will just look at a person in production and say, here is the ideal profile of a person, and this is the person doing it at the moment. At the 40% match, this person is not born to do it. And we don't fire people on the spot, but we start a very serious mentorship discussion based on how far the fit for their positions are off. And this is often, Michael, the indicator of why we are there, why this company is in breach of covenants, because there are some people on the wrong seats of the bus, as Jim Collins says in his book, Good to Great, and you have to get the right people on the bus. And you do that over time, and there are different ways to do it. So that is the one thing that you look for to get through clarity of mind, to say, don't just go with what you have. You have to ask questions about your team. You have to ask questions. Are you following the right measurements? And are you all the way to your improvement potential on each one of the categories?
Hey, just real quick there, Kobus, can you go through how do you score people? What are you doing to come up with that, to come up with the score to compare it to the profile?
There are different ways to do it, Michael. Recruiters use DISC and Myers-Briggs and a lot of different tools. It doesn't really matter which one you use. Just use one of the personality profiling tools that are out there. The one that we use is DISC. It is administered by a company in the UK. It's very inexpensive. It's about $100 per person. So you can do it as part of your recruitment process. And a lot of my past clients are still contacting me every time they hire a person. Please DISC this person for me. We want to make sure we bring in a person with the right fit. So there are different tools, but
okay,
DISC
all
is
right,
what we prefer.
All right, thank you.
So this is an example of, we will discuss OEE. And OEE, I didn't discuss it a few slides ago. Let me go all the way back and just make sure. In this slide here, I want to draw your attention to the definition of OEE. It is availability. Basically, that is your shift. The machine's availability is 8 hours. I like to use, just like Taiichi Ono, a very critical or a severe measurement of that is, if you're paying your people 8 hours, use 8 hours as the availability. Even if change over time for the shift or lunch breaks and other breaks are in there, use 8 hours because it's all available potential to be improved on. Machines don't take breaks, and people do. There are ways to improve on that. And then the performance, is that machine running at 100% or at 50% of the design capacity? And then the quality, is it producing 90% good parts or 100%? So if we bring that into this machine, this is an 8-color press. This was on the West Coast. They were running at only 7% OEE. So you may think, wow, what a bunch of losers to run a machine like that. But this is one of the highest end printers in the world, very high quality. So the pressman will take about 8 hours to do make ready and to get his press to the exact colors. Then the client will come in with the marketing consultant. They will check the colors to approve it and sign off, and then only he can get into his production run, which will only take like 30 minutes, and then he has to do that same 7-hour process for his next job. So we improved that from 7% to 20. And that is huge. It's almost 3 times. And OEE is scientific. It's just like gross margin or throughput in terms of sales or revenue. If you improve throughput by 7 times, or sorry, by almost 3 times, it means the volume that you get through the same people has gone up the same. And your income statement just explodes to the upside. It is very positive. In this case, they were at minus 10% net income, and we took them to plus 10% net income, a huge turnaround. We also did an unexpected intervention at the drying oven example in a construction company. This company was making wood injected with chemicals for the construction company, and I delivered that with a lot of different products to building sites around Chicago. So the owner got me in on the assessment, and we looked at these drying ovens, and I told him that the drying ovens are only utilized 50% of the time. And he almost fell on his back. He's a very good operator, and he was on top of the company in a very hands-on way. And once he saw the numbers and he called in his people to verify, he engaged us, and we took his companies from 38 million to 48 million without adding any capacity. And then we sold them for his company for a very high multiple because of that growth. So there's an unexpected results when you come in with an OEE lens in a company. The owner is often surprised at how much hidden capacity there is. And then Michael, in a machining center example, this was in Nebraska. We went in and we did a plant tour, and we saw this big machining center that was running on 2 shifts. Mm-hmm. And just as an example, I asked for, because they were arguing about the OEE, and they were saying that machine is utilized 97% of the time. And I could just observe from how they were running it that it was not the case. So I asked the planner to put some data on a thumb drive. He brought it back to me. And while we were in a meeting, I was calculating the OEE for that machining center. So that is how fast it can be done. It's not a 1 week or a 2-week assessment. It can be done on the fly with a preliminary meeting if you just ask for the right information, because it's very specific, both the inventory simulation and OEE. If you ask the right questions, you can get it very fast, and you can really open the owner's eyes to say, you have 3 plants. Well, let's go into that. The impact of that, if you can identify more capacity, now what are you going to do with it? If you have backlog, if you have orders that are late, that can be shipped in the next weeks, and that happens quick. So you can reduce backlog in later on, we're going to show an example of where we improve the revenue by shipping backlog very fast. That is very lucrative for the company. It creates room in your borrowing base. all positive things happen, the bank has a big smile. If you don't have backlog, there's normally some other sales opportunities that you can get. But because you have been so behind on orders, because you weren't using your capacity well, you just haven't discovered it. But if there is no more sales opportunity immediately, you can start reducing shifts. Some operations run 24/7. You can go to a 5-day shift. You can go from a 3 shift to a 2 shift. There's all kind of shift adjustments, because what OEE improvement means is you're getting more products off every shift. The same people are now giving you more. That means you can trim shifts. It's not the ideal case. What we do want to do, and that's why we're going to talk about market constraints in a minute. We want to add market flow to the company, but that takes time. Often we can improve capacity utilization much faster than you can bring on new sales. You can also consolidate locations. We've worked with a company that had 7 locations in the US, and we showed them that they can serve the whole US market from 1 location, or sometimes from 2 or 3, but you can consolidate. And that consolidation and overhead is huge. And again, a big smile from the bank when you get your borrowing base in line. And there's the point. Yes, Michael.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but a question came in. They were asking the techniques that you're talking about, the OEE, et cetera. Is it effective with smaller manufacturers, or is there a minimum size company that works best on?
No, it is the same impact for a small company. It even worked on an individual. Later on, we're going to see how this applies to people and not only machines. So you can also apply it to one person working an 8-hour shift. That is the level that you can apply it to. So it can be a very small company with 2 or 3 people. If you use OEE as a thinking lens on how you're going to set the expectations for the people. Once a day has passed, there must be a certain expectation of what happened, and that is often missing in companies. So once you have that mindset tuned in, then you start getting the results because people know what you're going to be expecting of them. That's a good question.
Thank you.
So OEE equals gross margin increase. I want to make that point. It's a direct impact on your gross margin. And as you know, people say gross margins cannot be impacted in the short term. This proves by affecting your OEE, you can impact your gross margins within 90 days. It's very powerful. Now we get to market constraints, and that takes a little bit more time. So let me go through. When we look at a client, we normally rank them on 1 to 10, whether they're an order taker, number 1, or a world-class marketer on 10. And most companies that are struggling, that are in trouble with their banks, are order takers. They've been traditionally serving the same customers, and the orders just continue to come in. And there's maybe a few reps that call on those existing customers. But what we challenge a company to do is to define the funnel steps. And they will say, what's a funnel? So we use this very basic and generic funnel to say, if you are a company in the Midwest or in Grand Rapids or in Michigan, what is your target customers? Who are they? How wide can you serve a customer? And you may say, I can serve the entire Midwest, or I can only serve Michigan. It depends on the company. So first of all, define your target area, and then which companies within that target area can you serve? And then get a list of them. Create a complete list of companies that is in your target market. It's not that hard to do. And then you ask yourself, how many of those companies, and now it may be a few hundred, 700 or 2,000 companies, how many of those companies are aware of your company and its offering? And so that awareness is the first job. Now you say, how are you going to get them aware? There are different ways to do it. Then from there, you measure the interest. So you have some kind of an outreach program. You measure the interest. The consideration is when you start interacting with a set quotation, or you say you're interested in this but not in that. Then they say, yes, I intend to sign that PO. And then you go into evaluation stage and finally a purchase. So what I also do is I add an incentive for salespeople so that if they take opportunities from stage A to B, they get either some money or they get credits, or there's some kind of a recognition to say salesman A had so many advances between his different activities and salesperson B wasn't even close. So we rank the people based on a weekly performance on these sales funnel. And then things start working fast. But often this whole sales funnel awareness is missing in a company. And that is why they are order taker and not a world-class marketer. So we will come up with different sales funnels. This is just a very busy slide, but it shows just different slides that, or different funnels that you have to run simultaneously. And certain groups, your marketing group may be running the first 4, and your sales group may be running the next 4, or different people are assigned to different funnels. But that's important, that you have a funnel matrix that you measure. And also you have to understand, where are your customers at the moment? Often companies are so used to just taking orders that they don't look at where are different ways that they can quickly get customers. So an example, Michael, you may be part of a trade show. Every industry has one big trade show. So you may be, for the last 20 years, you have showed up at that trade show. But we have recently, you may have heard about Stanley Cups, this company who's used this TikTok campaign to create an absolute viral mania for their cups from Target and Starbucks and different retailers that were selling their cups. And that's an example of sometimes something like TikTok combined with traditional trade shows can be the combination that works for you. Or it may be LinkedIn, or it may be that you are selling on Amazon, and by doing a clever Amazon campaign that you are able to really get your sales going. And that answers your previous question of, if you have excess product, try a few funnels where you try different creative ideas. And you use an outside marketing agency for this. It's not that expensive. You have to use the right one. But these things can get you a lot of traction in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think in the Midwest, what I've noticed over the last 20, 25 years, a lot of the companies here, at least in that footprint, use trade associations, trade shows. I mean, those are just the two that I've seen over and over and over. You know, the LinkedIn, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, the TikTok is certainly more of a, more recent phenomenon. You know, I think a lot of folks, are scratching their head trying to figure out how to leverage those things.
Yeah, and the main thing is to start somewhere, start with something, and then get comfortable. It's again overcoming that force of fear, and then eventually you get to clarity of mind, where you start to understand it. This is just a flow. Once you identify Facebook is going to be my place to get my traffic, then you have a whole series of actions that happen until you retarget a customer. It's not too important for now. But once you overcome your clarity of mind force, the force of knowledge that is clarity of mind, if you can push that away for long enough, people will start putting you in a position of power. Your customers will, people around you will do that. And that is when you met your third natural enemy of knowledge, which is power. And the way to overcome power is to push it away. As management, we should say, yes, we have the power to fire people, to hire people, to do what we want with our money. But if we are smart, we're going to push that power back to the people. The people gave you that power by selecting you and by supporting you as managers. And the way that we do this is we use incentives together with a ranking in the performance of the people, as I described before. And we have a push and a pull system where we will challenge people to go beyond their comfort zone. And this is an example of an injection molder in Michigan. They were running their injection molding machines at only 20% OEE. And we were able to increase their revenue by 40% in 90 days. 40% in 90 days by opening up the capacity of the machines, by using it better. And some of the machines were very complex like this, robots, but it's not that the robots were lazy, that they were only working for 20% of the time. It was that they were waiting for people to do something. So what we do is we use this sustainable procedure. We do a Kaizen training, which is basically an improvement project with a group of people. And then we make a Pareto visible of the downtime reasons. Why are these robots waiting for people? The number one reason is this, the number two reason is that. And then from there, we can basically say, set aggressive goals. Let's improve that 20% to 40%. Be aggressive. We add an incentive to really get under people's skin and to get their juices flowing. And then we rank. This group is number one. They've improved the most. This one is number two and number three. This is how it looks. A group of the right people, some from maintenance, some from the tool room, some from operations. Even HR can be part of a team like this. This is what they do. There's their Pareto. That's their OEE numbers. That's their goal. And here's the actions they're going to take. And this is the standard Kaizen process. Michael, now, very important. This can be done for people as well. For people, even you and I, every day we come and we do a to-do list. Today I have these things to do. But if you look at your list, some of them are rocks, some of them are pebbles, some of it is sand. So the rock, pebble, sand idea is very powerful to get more out of people. So by focusing on your rocks, the big things that you've been trying to do but haven't been able to get to, by focusing on them and putting higher weight on that, you often get more throughput out of a group of people. Let me show you in an example. Say this is a number of projects that run through a marketing team or a maintenance team or an engineering team or a programming team. If we are on this line, this is today, how many tasks must be completed? If we assume every task takes a week, how many tasks must be completed in the next week to be 100% on time, 100% progress? If you notice what's going to happen now with that line, it moves and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 tasks must be completed in the next week so that we stay 100% on time. And this visibility is often missing. Asana doesn't give it to you. Monday.com doesn't give it to you. It gives you visibility of tasks, but it does not clearly give you visibility of how many should you complete over a period of a week to be 100% on time. So that is what we use, and we've used that in a lot of different environments. This is a company in Sydney, Australia that I visited. They are a listed company. You can look them up, WiseTech Global. WTC is their ticker. Twice a day, they roll out these big screens, and people will just say, who's waiting for who? I see you are delayed on that task. Is it okay if I jump to this task? This is their leader, Richard White. He's a billionaire. And this is their stock performance. A very aggressive goal for a company is to have a goal of, Ellie Goldratt called it a viable vision, turning your revenue into your profit in 4 years' time. Look here, this 66 million in profit in 2014, they moved that into 78 in profit in 2018. Revenue to profit in 4 years. And they were presenting in Miami at the international conference that we attended in October. And they did it again. They did it again since 2018 to 22. They just continue to do that. And that is an example of really high ambitious targets that can be achieved by managing people, not machines.
Hey, Kobus, I just want to let you know it's quarter to one. So we might I know there's a couple of questions outstanding. We might want to try and wrap it up in the next 5 minutes if we can.
Okay, let me go quickly. This is the same sustainable procedure for running people. It's the same as what we used for the machines before. These are some of the leaders that I learned from. And that is the point. Don't try to figure it out for yourself. Have the clarity of mind and the openness to learn from others, because that gives you a fast track to the knowledge. And this is the program that we have, yoursensei.com. We give belts to the people of the companies that are improved, so that we don't come in as an agent, and when we leave, things fall back. This is some of the belt awards that we've given over time. And this is how Morris Anderson does a light assessment. A traditional assessment in a company takes 3 to 4 weeks and costs about $100,000. We now have a light approach where we will only be on site for 2 days. You get a report of what the opportunity in the company is in a week. It costs between $0 and $16,000, depending on the situation. And we only charge for results. We will come up with a monthly baseline like this, where you have a certain deteriorating performance. We will show you what we can do, and we only get 10 to 15 or 10 to 20% of the upside from there, depending on the size of the company. And then,
hey Kobus, you might. We might want to clarify so that Morris Anderson Light, that's the kind of a week. That's the assessment that might set the goals. And then that'll then launch into the full-time project, which might be 3 months or 6 months or whatever the case may be.
That 1 week brings us to this point where we can say, this is what we can do. We build a whole a projection model in Excel. And then there's a bit of an arm wrestle on where does the baseline settle. But once we agree on that, then the execution begins. So we execute with the company and we take the upside. This is a blue ocean, a book written a while ago, which I always remind people of. People often say, I'm a niche company. That is code for saying I cannot compete on cost. You must always challenge you and your team to do both cost and value, add both value and cost for a true blue ocean strategy. A blue ocean strategy is making your competition irrelevant. And by doing this type of baseline results-based offer to the market, that's how Morris Anderson tries to do our blue ocean strategy. These are some of the companies that are using these techniques that I've talked about. They presented in October in Miami at the international conference, and this is how you can become part of the solution. Start challenging the status quo. If your attorney says you cannot get results in 13 weeks, say, I think there are ways to do it. I've seen it. Demand the use of the scientific tool. Very scientific. You will get an impact on your cash flow and income statement if you improve OEE every time. Do a light assessment. Don't spend too much time for that. You can do it light and participate with us to learn these techniques and grow your own master black belts and bring these solutions to your business owners when they need it most. So our bios are in here if you need them. So from there, I will basically leave it to you for questions, Michael.
Yeah, so there were basically 2 outstanding. One is was asked a couple of times. Someone was asking if they could get if the slide deck was available for folks, and the short answer is yes. I think maybe the best way to do it is, I think Kobus just showed, it's got our bios in the back, which also has our emails. Maybe the best way is just send an email to us. Either one is fine, and we'll get you a copy of the slide deck. So that's number one. And another question that was asked was, is kind of going back to the OEE and its impact on revenue, and kind of going down the P&L, contribution margin, gross margin, EBITDA, and therefore, valuation. If a business owner was looking to prepare their company through sale and would like to, make those improvements through OEE and what have you, how long would it take to prepare a company for sale?
That is a great question, because we haven't touched on that too much. OEE drops to the cash flow and income statement, but when you sell your company, you sell it at a multiple of 5 or 6 or 7. So the leverage advantage of doing this is even higher. So don't leave 90 days. That is a little bit too short. You can get good results in 90 days, but you should try to give yourself a year. Within 3 quarters to a year is good time to really change what you're going to get for your company. I'm saying really change. There's one building products company, Mike, that I talked about. The owner, we were telling the owner, you can get 12 to 16 million. What the final valuation that we got for him was 36 million. And that was purely the improvement that in the throughput that we created for him. So the upside when you sell your company using this is huge. So do this for 9 months. We can overlap with the investment bank and do it in parallel, some of it, and then it works best.
Okay, thanks, Kobus. It looks like one more popped in. Oh, okay. It was just another question for receiving a copy of the deck. So I think that with that, that'll conclude our presentation. I want to thank everyone for attending. Thank Kobus for providing his time and discussing OEE and its impact on revenue, EBITDA, and valuation. So thanks so much, and we look forward to hearing from you. But thank you so much. Enjoy the day.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone. Go and do these techniques. They are powerful. Use them. Thank you.
Thanks, Kobus.